I used to think my Grandma Aurora was an open book, bound in sunshine and filled with simple, comforting tales. Her life, as I understood it, was a gentle melody played on repeat. A loving marriage, a cozy home filled with the aroma of baking bread, a garden bursting with roses, and a family overflowing with affection. I saw her blue eyes, the color of a summer sky just after dawn, as windows to a soul untroubled by storms. She was my haven, my confidant, the one person who always knew how to soothe my childhood anxieties with a warm hug and a whispered promise that everything would be all right. Her hands, gnarled with age and spotted with the brown of time, were magic. They could coax the most stubborn rose bush into bloom, knead dough into the softest, most fragrant loaves, and mend a broken heart with a single feather-light touch. I remember sitting at her feet for hours, mesmerized as she knitted, the rhythmic click of the needles a lullaby that transported me to a world of peaceful dreams. She'd tell me stories then, tales of princesses and brave knights, of talking animals and enchanted forests. But those stories, I now realize, were carefully curated, designed to shield me from the harsh realities of the world, a world she knew far better than I ever suspected. Aurora smelled of lavender and vanilla, a scent that clung to her clothes and lingered in the air long after she'd left a room. She always wore a delicate silver locket, shaped like a heart, around her neck. I remember asking her about it once when I was very small. She'd smiled, a sad, wistful smile that I didn't understand then, and simply said, "It holds a secret, my darling. A secret for another time." And so, time marched on. I grew up, the princess stories faded into distant memories, and Aurora, my constant, unwavering star, began to dim. Her steps grew slower, her voice softer, her blue eyes, though still bright, held a deeper, more profound sadness that even I, in my youthful self-absorption, couldn't ignore. The day she passed, the world felt muted, drained of color. The sun seemed to hide behind a veil of clouds, and the air hung heavy with a grief so profound it felt like a physical weight on my chest. The house, once filled with her laughter and the comforting aroma of baking, was now eerily silent, echoing with the absence of her presence. The reading of the will was a formality, a necessary evil to settle her affairs. I wasn't expecting much. Aurora had lived a simple life, her needs few, her desires even fewer. My cousins, more pragmatic and ambitious than I, were undoubtedly hoping for a larger share of whatever meager inheritance she might have left behind. I wasn't surprised when I learned that my aunt and uncle were left the house. It only made sense. They had the space for it, the means to keep it up. My cousins, the ones with the fancy cars and the designer clothes, were left with a good portion of the savings, investments Aurora had been carefully making for decades. I was not surprised to find my name was absent. It didn't sting, not really. I didn't need her money. I had her love, her memories, and the invaluable lessons she had taught me. Those were riches enough. But after the lawyers had packed their briefcases and the relatives had dispersed, a sense of unease settled over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that a piece of the puzzle was missing. I lingered in the house, drawn to the attic, a dusty, forgotten space that Aurora rarely visited. The attic was a repository of forgotten treasures, a chaotic collection of discarded furniture, faded photographs, and dusty boxes filled with memories of generations past. The air was thick with the scent of mothballs and aged paper, a smell that both repelled and intrigued me. Sunlight streamed through a crack in the boarded-up window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, ethereal beings. I began to sift through the boxes, hoping to find something, anything, that would offer a glimpse into the deeper recesses of Aurora's heart. Old photo albums revealed snapshots of a younger Aurora, radiant with youthful beauty, posing with friends and family. Letters tied with faded ribbons spoke of mundane events, of births and weddings and everyday joys and sorrows. Nothing extraordinary, nothing that hinted at the secrets I felt sure she held. Discouraged, I was about to give up when my hand brushed against something tucked away in the darkest corner of the attic, behind a stack of moth-eaten quilts. It was a small wooden box, intricately carved with roses and vines, the wood worn smooth with age. I lifted it carefully, my heart pounding with a strange premonition. The box was locked, but the latch was flimsy, easily broken with a gentle twist. Inside, nestled on a bed of yellowed lace, was a diary. Not a pristine store-bought diary with crisp, empty pages, but a worn leather-bound journal, its pages filled with faded ink in Aurora's unmistakable handwriting. The leather was soft and supple, worn smooth by countless hours of handling. It smelled faintly of lavender and something else, something indefinable, a scent that evoked a sense of longing and untold stories. My hands trembled as I opened the diary, my breath catching in my throat. The first entry was dated 1942, a time of war and upheaval, a time that Aurora had rarely spoken about. I scanned the page, my eyes widening in disbelief. The words were raw, honest, and deeply personal, revealing a side of Aurora that I had never known existed. It spoke of a forbidden love, a love that defied societal expectations and wartime constraints. It spoke of sacrifices made, of secrets kept, and of a burden carried in silence for decades. It spoke of a past so different from the idyllic life she had presented to the world, a past filled with passion, heartbreak, and unwavering courage. I sat there for hours, lost in the pages of Aurora's diary, my perception of her shattering with each word I read. The woman I thought I knew, the gentle, unassuming grandmother who had always been my safe harbor, was a woman of extraordinary depth and resilience, a woman who had lived a life far more complex and fascinating than I could have ever imagined. The diary revealed a hidden world, a world of clandestine meetings, coded messages, and daring acts of resistance. It spoke of a network of brave individuals who risked their lives to protect others, and of the devastating consequences of war and prejudice. It spoke of a legacy of love and sacrifice that echoed across generations, a legacy that I, her granddaughter, was now tasked with understanding. This wasn't the gentle melody I thought I knew. This was a symphony, full of soaring highs and devastating lows, a composition that painted a portrait of a woman whose life was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The discovery of the diary changed everything. It challenged my assumptions, shattered my illusions, and opened my eyes to a truth that had been hidden for far too long. I realized that my grandma Aurora wasn't an open book at all, but a carefully guarded treasure chest, filled with secrets waiting to be unlocked. And now I find myself on a path I never anticipated, a path that leads me back to a time of war and sacrifice, to a love story that defied all odds, and to a legacy that will forever bind me to the extraordinary woman who was my grandma Aurora. I feel her with me now, urging me to tell her story, to share her truth with the world. If you'd like to keep me company as we explore these memories, please subscribe and stay close. This is a story that needs to be told, a story that deserves to be heard. And I, her granddaughter, am ready to share it with you one page at a time. The scent of lavender still clung faintly to the pages, a ghost of the garden I'd long forgotten. Reading the first entry, the brittle paper whispering under my trembling fingers, felt like stepping through a doorway I hadn't realized existed. A doorway back to Willow Creek. Willow Creek wasn't much to look at, not on a map anyway. Just a smudge of green nestled in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. A place time seemed to have forgotten, or perhaps, more accurately, a place time had chosen to hold close, like a precious secret. This was the late 1930s, and the world outside might have been teetering on the edge of upheaval, but in Willow Creek, the rhythm of life remained stubbornly, beautifully, the same. Our farm, a patchwork quilt of fields stitched together with hedgerows and dry stone walls, lay just outside town. Pa was a man of the earth, his hands calloused and strong, his face weathered like old leather from years spent under the sun. Ma, on the other hand, carried the sun within her. Her laughter was like wind chimes on a summer breeze, and her hands, though roughened by work, were always quick to soothe a scraped knee or brush a stray strand of hair from my forehead. I was Aurora, the middle child, sandwiched between Thomas, my older brother, and Lily, my younger sister. Thomas, with his head always in the clouds, dreamt of flying. He'd spend hours poring over tattered magazines featuring daring pilots and sleek airplanes, his eyes alight with a fire that burned brighter than any hearth. Lily, with her head full of poetry and her heart overflowing with empathy, saw the world in shades and textures others missed. She could coax a wilting flower back to life with a whispered word, and her drawings captured the soul of a place, not just its appearance. I wasn't quite sure what I was. I loved the farm, the feel of the cool earth between my toes, the scent of hay drying in the sun. I loved helping Ma in the kitchen, learning to knead dough and churn butter. I loved the evenings spent huddled around the crackling fire, Pa telling stories of his own childhood, Ma humming softly as she knitted. But there was always a quiet hum beneath the surface of my contentment, a feeling that there was something more, something just beyond the horizon I couldn't quite grasp. Our days unfolded with a predictable grace. Sunrise meant the rooster's crow, the smell of Ma's coffee brewing, and the clatter of Pa heading out to the fields. Thomas would join him after a hurried breakfast, eager to escape the confines of the house and lose himself in his dreams of flight. Lily and I would help Ma with the chores, feeding the chickens, gathering eggs, weeding the garden. Afternoons were for reading. I'd often escape to the sprawling oak tree at the edge of the pasture, its branches reaching out like welcoming arms. There, nestled amongst the rustling leaves, I'd lose myself in stories of faraway lands, of daring adventures and impossible loves. My imagination was a boundless ocean, and I longed to set sail on it, to explore the uncharted territories that lay beyond Willow Creek. Lily would join me sometimes, bringing her sketchbook and a handful of wildflowers. She'd sit quietly beside me, her brow furrowed in concentration, as she captured the delicate beauty of a dandelion or the intricate patterns of a butterfly's wing. She saw beauty in everything, even the things others overlooked. Evenings were a time for family. We'd gather around the dinner table, sharing stories of our day, the triumphs and the tribulations, the small joys and the quiet sorrows. Pa would talk about the crops, the weather, the challenges of farming. Ma would share gossip from town, news of births and marriages, illnesses and recoveries. Thomas would recount his latest aviation discoveries, his enthusiasm infectious. Lily would offer her observations, her insights often surprisingly profound for someone so young. After dinner, we'd often sit on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. Pa would play his harmonica, the mournful notes drifting through the air like a lullaby. We'd lie on our backs, tracing constellations in the inky blackness, whispering secrets to the stars. I remember one particular evening. The moon was a silver sliver in the sky, and the air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle. Thomas was particularly animated, talking about a barnstormer who had landed at the nearby airfield, performing daring aerial stunts. His eyes shone with an almost feverish intensity. "Imagine Aurora," he said, his voice hushed with awe. "Soaring through the clouds, seeing the world from above. It must be like being a bird." I looked up at the moon, feeling a familiar ache in my chest. "I wish I could see the world," I murmured almost to myself. Ma, who always seemed to sense my unspoken longings, gently squeezed my hand. "You will, Aurora," she said softly. "In your own time, in your own way." But time, as it always does, had its own plans. The whispers of war, which had seemed so distant, began to creep closer, seeping into the fabric of our quiet lives. The news on the radio grew more ominous, the headlines in the newspapers more alarming. Thomas, his dreams fueled by a growing sense of patriotic fervor, became increasingly restless, his gaze fixed on the horizon, waiting for his chance to fly. The world outside Willow Creek was changing, and I knew with a growing sense of unease that our peaceful existence was about to be shattered. The hum beneath the surface was growing louder, a discordant note in the symphony of our lives. The summer of '39 felt different, even before the official word of war reached Willow Creek. It was in the air, a subtle shift in the wind, a nervousness that settled on the shoulders of the adults like a persistent, invisible dust. The carefree laughter of children playing in the creek seemed louder, almost defiant, as if trying to drown out the growing unease. Before, the radio had been a source of entertainment, crackling with music and light-hearted stories. Now it became a portal to a world that felt both distant and terrifyingly close. Every evening my parents would gather around it, their faces etched with worry as the announcer's voice boomed with news from Europe. Names like Poland and Czechoslovakia became household words, whispered with a mixture of fear and incomprehension. I didn't understand the complexities of it all, the political machinations and the territorial disputes. All I knew was that the adults were scared, and their fear seeped into the very fabric of our lives. Thomas, ever the adventurer, saw the war as a grand opportunity. He devoured newspaper articles, his eyes gleaming with excitement as he spoke of joining the Air Force, of fighting for freedom and glory. He romanticized it, painting vivid pictures of heroic battles and daring feats, completely oblivious to the grim reality that lay beneath the surface. My parents, however, were not so easily swayed. Their faces grew pale whenever Thomas spoke of enlisting, their silence a stark contrast to his youthful enthusiasm. They had lived through the Great War, seen its devastating toll on families and communities. They knew that war was not a game, not an adventure, but a brutal, unforgiving force that shattered lives and left scars that never truly healed. Mama, always practical, worried about the crops. With the men potentially gone, who would tend the fields? Who would provide for the family? Papa, usually so stoic, grew increasingly withdrawn, his gaze fixed on the horizon as if searching for answers in the vast expanse of the sky. He spent hours in the barn, mending fences and sharpening tools, his movements slow and deliberate, as if trying to hold on to the familiar routines of a life that was rapidly changing. And me? I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me was still the naive girl who dreamed of romance and adventure, who longed for something more than the quiet predictability of Willow Creek. But another part of me was beginning to awaken, to see the world with new eyes, to understand the fragility of peace and the weight of responsibility. The stories on the radio, the worried faces of my parents, the restless energy of Thomas. It all converged to create a sense of unease, a premonition that something significant was about to happen, something that would forever alter the course of our lives. It was during that unsettling summer that Elias arrived. He came on the evening train, stepping onto the platform with a quiet confidence that immediately set him apart from the local boys. He wore a uniform, but it wasn't the crisp, starched uniform of a soldier ready for battle. It was more worn, almost lived in. The fabric seemed to cling to him, revealing the lean strength of his body. He carried a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a worn leather satchel in his hand. He wasn't like anyone I had ever seen. The boys in Willow Creek were rough around the edges, their faces tanned by the sun and their hands callous from working the land. Elias had a different kind of strength, a quiet intensity that burned beneath the surface. His eyes, a deep, fathomless blue, held a sadness that belied his youth. He moved with a grace that was both captivating and unsettling, like a wild animal that had been tamed but never truly broken. He asked for directions to the Miller farm, his voice a low melodic rumble that sent shivers down my spine. I pointed him towards the dirt road that led out of town, my heart pounding in my chest. He thanked me with a slight nod, his eyes meeting mine for a brief, electrifying moment. In that instant I felt an inexplicable connection to him, a sense of recognition that defied logic. He stayed at the Miller farm, helping with the chores and keeping mostly to himself. He didn't talk much about his past, and no one seemed to know where he came from or why he was there. Rumors swirled around him like dust devils in the summer heat. Some said he was a deserter hiding from the army. Others claimed he was a spy, sent to gather information about the local community. Still others whispered that he was a war hero, haunted by the horrors he had witnessed on the battlefield. I saw him occasionally, when I went into town for groceries or when I helped Mama sell our produce at the market. He would always acknowledge me with a polite nod, but he never said anything more. Yet I felt his presence, a silent undercurrent that ran beneath the surface of my daily life. I found myself drawn to him, captivated by his mystery and intrigued by his quiet strength. One afternoon, I was walking home from the market when I saw him sitting by the creek, sketching in a small notebook. He was so absorbed in his work that he didn't notice me at first. I hesitated, unsure whether to approach him, but something compelled me forward, a force stronger than my shyness or my fear. "That's beautiful," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, startled, his eyes widening in surprise. He quickly closed the notebook and tucked it away. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft and hesitant. We stood in silence for a moment, the only sound the gentle murmur of the creek. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you sketching?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated for a moment, then slowly opened the notebook and showed me the sketch. It was a drawing of the creek, the water shimmering in the sunlight, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. It was a perfect rendition, capturing the beauty and tranquility of the scene with remarkable skill. "It's beautiful," I repeated, my voice filled with genuine admiration. He smiled, a faint, fleeting expression that transformed his face. "I like to capture the beauty of the world," he said, his voice barely audible. "Before it's all gone." His words struck me like a blow. They were filled with a sense of foreboding, a premonition of the darkness that was looming on the horizon. I suddenly understood that he wasn't just sketching the creek. He was trying to preserve a moment in time, to hold on to the beauty and innocence of a world that was about to be lost. We talked for a long time that afternoon, sitting by the creek, sharing our thoughts and our fears. He told me a little about his life, about his travels and his experiences. He didn't reveal much, but I sensed that he was holding something back, that there were secrets hidden beneath his quiet exterior. He spoke of his love for art, for music, for the simple pleasures of life. He spoke of his hatred for war, for the senseless violence and the needless suffering. He spoke of his hope for a better future, a future where peace and justice would prevail. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the fields, I knew that my life had changed forever. Elias had awakened something within me, a sense of purpose and a desire to make a difference in the world. He had shown me that even in the darkest of times, there was still beauty to be found, still hope to be cherished. But I also knew that his presence in Willow Creek was a dangerous one. He was a man with a past, a man with secrets, a man who was caught in the crosscurrents of a world at war. And I feared that his presence would soon bring trouble to our peaceful community, that his secrets would unravel and entangle us all in a web of danger and deceit. The war was coming, I could feel it in my bones. And Elias, I suspected, was not just a bystander. He was a piece of the puzzle, a player in a game far bigger and more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. And I, drawn to him by an inexplicable force, was about to be swept up in his wake. My innocent summer was over. The world and my place in it was about to change forever. The will, still unread, seemed a distant irrelevance compared to the storm gathering on the horizon. My dears, the quiet of Willow Creek, the kind that lulls you into believing the world is nothing but gentle fields and babbling brooks. It was a deceptive quiet. It held its breath, waiting. And so did I. After that first meeting with Elias, near the creek where fireflies danced like fallen stars, my heart felt like a bird trapped in a cage, fluttering with a hope I dared not name. We met again, of course, in the hush of twilight, beneath the ancient oak at the edge of the woods. He was there, a shadow among shadows, his face etched with a worry that mirrored my own. "Aurora," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "I must tell you something. Something important." And so he did. He wasn't simply a traveler as I'd imagined. He was a scientist, yes, but a German scientist who had turned his back on the madness engulfing his homeland. He spoke of a device, an encryption machine of immense power, hidden somewhere, its existence known only to a few. He said the Nazis were desperate to find it, that it could change the course of the war. And he, Elias, had deserted, risked everything, to prevent it from falling into their hands. He was hunted, he confessed, by his own people, branded a traitor, and by the Allies suspicious of his motives. He was a man caught between two fires with nowhere to turn. And he was trusting me, a simple woman from a small town, with his life, his mission, his secrets. The weight of it settled upon me, heavy and cold. Fear coiled in my stomach, but beneath it, something else stirred. A sense of purpose. A feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, I wasn't meant to simply watch the world burn. Willow Creek, I soon realized, was no longer the safe haven I had always known. Subtle changes began to creep in. Strangers arrived, their eyes too sharp, their questions too pointed. They wore the guise of ordinary folk, but their presence felt like a discordant note in a familiar melody. I saw them watching, observing, their gazes lingering on the church, on the old clockmaker's shop, on me. Fear became a constant companion. I found myself avoiding the town square, drawing the curtains a little tighter each night. I saw the worry etched on Mama's face, the growing unease in Papa's eyes. I knew they sensed it too, the creeping darkness that threatened to engulf our little world. Elias and I continued to meet, our stolen moments becoming precious islands of solace in a sea of fear. He spoke of his mentor, a brilliant clockmaker named Herr Schmidt, who had entrusted him with the secret of the device, with clues to its location hidden within the intricate workings of his clocks. Herr Schmidt, Elias believed, had foreseen the coming storm and had hidden the device in a place where it would be safe, waiting for someone to find it and use it for good. One evening, Elias brought me a small, intricately crafted pocket watch. "This," he said, his voice hushed, "is the key. Herr Schmidt left me a message, encoded within the gears. Together, under the flickering light of my lamp, we deciphered the message. It spoke of a labyrinth of hidden passages, of a place where time stood still. And then the final chilling clue. Beneath the house of God, where the bell no longer tolls. The church. The old church with its crumbling steeple and its silenced bell. A place of quiet contemplation, now a potential battleground. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The artifact, the device Elias was seeking, was hidden beneath the church. In Willow Creek. In my home. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the wind whisper through the trees, my mind racing. I thought of Elias, his haunted eyes, his unwavering determination. I thought of my family, their innocence, their vulnerability. And I thought of the Nazis, their ruthless ambition, their insatiable hunger for power. The diary, my old, leather-bound diary, became my confidant. I poured out my fears, my doubts, my hopes onto its pages. I wrote of my growing feelings for Elias, a love born in the shadow of war, a love that felt both dangerous and exhilarating. I wrote of my conflict, my agonizing choice between protecting the man I loved and safeguarding my family from harm. What am I to do? I scribbled, my hand trembling. How can I choose between love and duty, between hope and fear? The answer, when it came, was not a grand revelation, but a quiet understanding that settled deep within my bones. I couldn't stand by and watch. I couldn't allow the darkness to consume us all. I had to act. I had to choose. And so I chose love. Not blindly, not foolishly, but with open eyes, knowing the risks, accepting the consequences. I would help Elias find the device. I would protect him, and in doing so I would protect my family, my town, my world. The next morning I met Elias at our usual spot. The air was thick with tension, the sky heavy with unspoken dread. I know where it is, I said, my voice trembling but firm. It's beneath the church. His eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and hope flickering within them. Are you sure? I nodded. I'm sure. And so our mission began. We would enter the labyrinth beneath the church, seeking a hidden device, pursued by unseen enemies. We were two souls bound together by fate, by love, by a desperate hope for a better future. But little did we know, my dears, that the labyrinth held secrets of its own. Secrets that would challenge everything we believed. Secrets that would test the very limits of our courage and our love. The quiet of Willow Creek was about to be shattered, and I, Aurora, was about to become a player in a game far bigger, far more dangerous than I could ever have imagined. The war had come to our doorstep, and there was no turning back. The air in the hidden chamber tasted of dust and secrets. Each breath was a rasp in my throat, a counterpoint to the frantic hammering of my heart. Elias held the lantern high, its beam dancing across the cold, damp stone walls. We had done it. After weeks, months even, of deciphering riddles and following whispers, we were finally here, beneath the crumbling church, in the clockmaker's sanctuary. The chamber wasn't large, perhaps 20 feet across, but it held an atmosphere of profound stillness, a silence so complete it hummed. The walls were lined with intricate clockwork mechanisms, gears frozen mid-turn, springs coiled tight with potential energy. It was a testament to the clockmaker's genius, a symphony of metal and ingenuity silenced by time. In the center of the room, resting on a simple wooden pedestal, was the artifact, a small, ornately carved wooden box. Elias let out a shaky breath, his eyes shining. There it is, Aurora. After all this time, I reached out, my fingers trembling, and traced the intricate carvings on the box. They depicted scenes of nature, of blossoming trees and soaring birds, a stark contrast to the war-torn world above. It felt warm to the touch, almost alive. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed from the entrance. The heavy stone door, which had taken us hours to unlock, splintered inwards, showering the chamber with debris. Figures in dark uniforms flooded the room, their faces grim, their weapons drawn. Nazis! They had found us. Elias! I cried, instinctively stepping back. Elias pushed me behind him, his eyes hardening. He drew his own pistol, the small weapon looking almost insignificant against the backdrop of the chamber and the imposing figures now surrounding us. Aurora, take the box, he said, his voice low and urgent. Get out of here. I'll hold them off. No, I won't leave you, I protested, fear constricting my throat. You have to. he insisted, his grip tightening on my arm. This is bigger than us, Aurora. You know that. You have to protect it. The Nazis advanced, their boots crunching on the shattered stone. One of them barked an order in German, his words sharp and menacing. Elias fired, the shot echoing in the confined space. A Nazi soldier stumbled, clutching his arm. The others returned fire, the air filled with the deafening roar of gunfire. Elias pulled me towards a narrow passage I hadn't noticed before, hidden behind one of the clockwork mechanisms. Go. I'll be right behind you. I hesitated, my heart tearing in two. Leaving him felt like tearing a piece of myself away. But I knew he was right. I had to protect the artifact. I had to trust him. I squeezed his hand, a silent promise passing between us. Then I turned and plunged into the darkness of the passage. The passage was narrow and winding, the air thick with dust and the smell of damp earth. I stumbled blindly, my hands outstretched, feeling my way along the rough stone walls. The sounds of gunfire echoed behind me, growing fainter as I moved deeper into the labyrinth. I knew the clockmaker had designed this place with escape in mind. Elias had told me stories, whispered secrets gleaned from old blueprints and forgotten journals. He had memorized the layout, the hidden passages, the false walls. But now, without him, I was lost, relying only on my memory and the instinct that screamed at me to keep moving. I heard shouts behind me, the heavy footsteps of the Nazis drawing closer. They were following me. I had to find a way out. I remembered Elias telling me about a pressure plate, hidden beneath a loose stone. I scrambled along the floor, my fingers searching desperately for the telltale crack in the stone. Finally I found it. I pressed down and with a grinding sound, a section of the wall slid open, revealing another passage. I slipped through the opening, the wall closing behind me. I was in complete darkness now, the silence almost unbearable. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and shallow, and the frantic beating of my heart. Suddenly, a light flared in the distance. I froze, my body tense. Was it the Nazis? Or something else? I crept forward cautiously, the light growing brighter with each step. As I rounded a corner, I saw it, a faint glimmer of daylight filtering through a crack in the ceiling. An escape. I scrambled towards the light, pulling myself up the crumbling wall. With a final surge of effort, I reached the opening and pulled myself through, collapsing onto the soft earth above. I was in the woods, a short distance from the church. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the trees. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness of the labyrinth. I sat there for a long time, catching my breath, trying to make sense of what had happened. I had escaped. I had the artifact. But Elias. A sob escaped my lips, a raw guttural sound that echoed through the trees. Elias was gone. He had sacrificed himself to save me, to save the artifact. And I had left him. Guilt washed over me, a crushing weight that threatened to suffocate me. I should have stayed. I should have fought. I should have died with him. But then I remembered his words. This is bigger than us, Aurora. You have to protect it. He had entrusted me with a mission, a purpose. And I couldn't fail him. I couldn't let his sacrifice be in vain. I clutched the wooden box to my chest, feeling the warmth radiating from it. It was more than just an object. It was a symbol of hope, of resistance, of the enduring power of the human spirit. It was Elias's legacy, and now it was mine. I opened the diary, the familiar weight grounding me. The blank pages stared back, expectant. I dipped the pen in ink, the nib scratching against the paper as I began to write. I wrote about the chamber, about the clockwork mechanisms, about the Nazis, about Elias. I wrote about his courage, his kindness, his unwavering belief in a better world. I wrote about my grief, my guilt, my fear. And as I wrote, something began to shift within me. The grief didn't disappear, but it began to transform, to harden into something else. A fierce determination, a burning resolve. I would not let Elias's memory fade. I would not let the Nazis win. I would protect the artifact no matter the cost. The diary became my confidant, my solace, my weapon. It was where I poured out my pain, where I planned my next move, where I kept Elias alive. It was my connection to the past, and my guide to the future. I knew then that my life would never be the same. I was no longer just Aurora. I was a guardian, a protector, a warrior. I was carrying a burden, a responsibility that would define me for the rest of my days. And as I sat there in the fading light, with the diary in my lap and the artifact clutched to my chest, I knew that Elias was with me. His love, his sacrifice, his spirit would guide me, protect me, and give me the strength to face whatever lay ahead. The war was far from over, but I was ready. I was ready to fight. I was ready to carry on his legacy. I was ready to become the woman he knew I could be. The woman I never knew I was. The cold stone scraped against my skin as I crawled, scrambled, clawed my way out. The labyrinth spat me back into the world. A world that felt suddenly, irrevocably wrong. Elias wasn't beside me. The air itself felt thinner, colder, like a vital element had been leached away. My breath hitched, a ragged sob caught in my throat. I didn't dare look back. I ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed, until the trees blurred into streaks of green and brown, until I collapsed on the familiar porch of our summer house, the very place we'd plotted and planned, laughed and dreamed. Home. It mocked me with its normalcy. I stumbled inside, the artifact heavy against my chest, a cold, silent weight. I didn't bother turning on the lights. The twilight was enough to see the dust motes dancing in the air, undisturbed. Everything was undisturbed. Except me. I stripped off my torn clothes, the scent of earth and something metallic clinging to them. I didn't shower. Couldn't bear the feel of water on my skin, the reminder of the damp labyrinth of Elias. I wrapped myself in a blanket, the scratchy wool a small comfort. The diary. It was on the bedside table where I'd left it. Elias's diary. I picked it up, the leather worn smooth from his touch. My fingers traced the faded gold lettering. His initials. Felt wrong, sacrilegious to open it. But I had to. The first page was his familiar handwriting, neat and precise. Dates, observations, sketches. But as I flipped through, I found something new. Tucked between the pages, a folded piece of parchment. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. It was a map. Not of the labyrinth, but of the town. My town. With markings, symbols I didn't recognize. And a single word scrawled in the corner. Custos. Guardian. The word echoed in the silence of the room. Guardian of what? Of whom? I closed the diary, the map clutched in my hand. The weight of it was crushing. The official story was simple. Elias had died in a hiking accident. A fall. Tragic but clean. My family, bless their hearts, smothered me in sympathy and platitudes. He's in a better place, they said. Time heals all wounds. They didn't know. They couldn't know. I couldn't tell them the truth. Not about the labyrinth, not about the artifact, not about the sacrifice. The burden of silence was almost unbearable. I avoided mirrors. My reflection was a stranger, haunted eyes, pale skin, a ghost of a smile that never reached my lips. I flinched at the sound of my name, the sound of a car door slamming, the ring of the telephone. Every unexpected noise was a potential threat. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued me, endless corridors, the glint of steel, Elias's scream. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the artifact cold against my skin. Days bled into weeks. I went through the motions, a puppet on strings. I ate, I slept, I spoke. But inside I was hollow. A shell. The diary became my only confidant. I poured my grief into its pages, not in elegant prose, but in raw, broken sentences. Anger, guilt, despair. I wrote until my hand cramped, until the ink ran out, until the words blurred into meaningless streaks. One evening, I found myself drawn to Elias's study. It had been left untouched, a shrine to his memory. Dust lay thick on the shelves, on the maps that covered the walls, on the piles of books that threatened to topple over. I ran my hand over the spine of one of his books, a thick tome on local history. I pulled it out, the dust puffing into the air. As I flipped through the pages, a small folded note fell out. It was in Elias's handwriting, but different. Harsher, more urgent. It was a series of numbers, a code. And at the bottom, a single word. Watch. Watch what? Who? I sat there for hours trying to decipher the code, the map, the note, piecing together the fragments of Elias's research. He had been close. So close. A flicker of something sparked within me. Not hope, not yet. But something akin to purpose. I started small. I visited the local library, spending hours in the dusty archives, poring over old maps, newspaper clippings, historical documents. I learned about the history of the town, the families who had lived here for generations, the secrets they had kept. I started noticing things I had never seen before. Strange symbols carved into old buildings, hidden pathways, whispers in the wind. I was still grieving. The pain was a constant companion, a dull ache in my chest. But now there was something else. A sense of urgency, a sense of responsibility. Elias had entrusted me with something precious, something dangerous. And I wouldn't let him down. I wasn't strong yet. I was still afraid, still broken. But I was learning. I was watching. I was beginning to understand. The world was not what I thought it was. And I was no longer the person I thought I was. My transformation had begun, not in a blaze of glory, but in the quiet, solitary act of remembering, of honoring, of carrying on. Grandma Aurora, they called me. Little did they know I was also Custos. And my watch had begun. My dears, after the reading of the will, after the sting of being overlooked had faded into a dull ache, Aurora did what she always did when faced with a mountain too high to climb. She started with the first step. Willow Creek, sweet as it was, had become a cage, its familiar streets now echoing with the whispers of pity and speculation. She needed to vanish, to become a ghost in a larger world, where her grief wouldn't be a spectacle and her purpose could bloom in secret. It wasn't easy leaving. Saying goodbye to Mrs. Gable, who'd practically raised her after her parents passed, felt like ripping a piece of her heart out. The older woman, bless her soul, understood. She saw the steel in Aurora's eyes, the quiet determination that mirrored Elias's own. She packed Aurora a small bag of her famous apple tarts, a little taste of home to carry with her. The bus ride was long and dusty, the landscape blurring past the window like a faded photograph. Aurora clutched Elias's diary to her chest, its worn leather a comforting presence. It wasn't just a book. It was a lifeline, a map to a future she couldn't quite see but desperately hoped for. She arrived in the city, a sprawling beast of brick and steel, feeling smaller than she ever had before. The noise was deafening, the crowds overwhelming. Finding a room in a boarding house near the university was a stroke of luck, or perhaps Elias guiding her hand even from beyond. It was a cramped, dusty space above a bakery, the scent of warm bread a constant, comforting aroma that helped to soothe her anxieties. And then the work began. Aurora immersed herself in the city's libraries, spending hours poring over books on cryptography, linguistics, and history. Elias's diary was her guide, its cryptic entries slowly revealing their secrets. She learned about the Enigma machine, the complexities of German military codes, and the subtle art of breaking them. It was like learning a new language, a language of numbers and symbols, and Aurora, with her sharp mind and unwavering focus, proved to be a gifted student. She discovered that the artifact, the strange device Elias had entrusted to her, was more than just an encryption tool. It was a key, a powerful intelligence device capable of deciphering enemy communications and even predicting their movements. Elias, bless his inventive soul, had created something truly remarkable. But understanding the device was only half the battle. Aurora needed to learn how to use it, how to protect it, and how to protect herself. She began to observe, to listen, to become a shadow in the city. She learned to blend in, to move unnoticed through crowds, to pick up snippets of conversation without drawing attention. She spent hours in cafes, sipping weak coffee and eavesdropping on conversations. She learned to read faces, to detect subtle cues of nervousness or suspicion. She practiced her handwriting, changing it slightly each day, so that no one would recognize her script. She even started taking self-defense classes at a local YMCA, learning how to disarm an attacker, and how to disappear into the night. It was a lonely life, my dears. Aurora missed the warmth of her friends, the familiar comfort of Willow Creek. She longed for a simple conversation, a shared laugh, a moment of respite from the constant pressure. But she knew she couldn't afford to relax, not even for a moment. The Nazis were still searching for the artifact, and she knew they wouldn't hesitate to use any means necessary to get it. One evening, while working late in the library, Aurora felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. She looked up and saw a man watching her from across the room. He was tall and well-dressed, with cold, calculating eyes. There was something about him that set off alarm bells in her mind. She quickly gathered her books and left the library, walking briskly down the street. She glanced back and saw that the man was still following her. Her heart pounded in her chest. She ducked into a crowded market, weaving her way through the stalls, hoping to lose him in the throng. She managed to slip into a narrow alleyway, pressing herself against the wall, holding her breath. She heard the man's footsteps echoing on the pavement outside. He paused, as if trying to figure out where she had gone. Then he moved on. Aurora waited for several minutes, until she was sure he was gone. She emerged from the alleyway, her legs trembling. She knew then that she was being watched, that the enemy was closing in. That night she dreamt of Elias. He stood before her, his face etched with concern. "Be careful, Aurora," he said. "They are more dangerous than you realize. Trust your instincts and never give up." His words gave her strength. She knew she couldn't run, she couldn't hide. She had to face the danger head-on. She had to protect the artifact not just for herself but for Elias, for the future. She began to encrypt her notes, using a complex system based on musical notation that Elias had taught her years ago. She changed her routine, taking different routes to the library, varying her meal times, and always being aware of her surroundings. She practiced her self-defense moves in the privacy of her room, her movements becoming sharper, more precise. One day, while deciphering a newly intercepted German communication, Aurora stumbled upon a coded message that mentioned her by name. It was a confirmation, a chilling acknowledgement that they knew who she was and what she possessed. The message also hinted at a planned operation, a raid on a specific location in the city. Aurora realized that she had to act quickly. She couldn't go to the authorities. She didn't know who she could trust. She was alone, but she wasn't helpless. She decided to use the artifact to her advantage, to decipher the enemy's plans and to turn the tables on them. She spent the next few days working tirelessly, using the artifact to decode the enemy's communications. She discovered that the raid was planned for a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place where the Nazis suspected Allied agents were meeting. Aurora knew she couldn't let the raid happen. She had to warn the agents, but she had to do it in a way that wouldn't expose herself or the artifact. She devised a plan, a daring and risky plan that would require all of her courage and skill. She crafted a coded message, using a simple substitution cipher that she knew the Allied agents would recognize. She then slipped the message into a newspaper, placing it in a public phone booth near the warehouse. She knew it was a long shot, but it was the best she could do. The night of the planned raid, Aurora waited in the shadows watching the warehouse. She saw the Nazi soldiers arrive, their faces grim and determined. She saw them storm the building, their guns blazing. But then, something unexpected happened. The Allied agents were ready for them. They had set up traps and ambushes, and they fought back fiercely. The battle raged for hours, the sound of gunfire and explosions echoing through the night. Finally, the Nazis were defeated. They were forced to retreat, leaving behind their dead and wounded. The Allied agents had survived, thanks to Aurora's warning. Aurora watched as the agents emerged from the warehouse, their faces weary but triumphant. She knew she couldn't reveal herself to them, not yet. But she felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. She had made a difference, she had helped to save lives. She slipped away into the night, a shadow in the darkness, her heart filled with a quiet sense of purpose. She knew the danger wasn't over, that the Nazis would continue to hunt her. But she was no longer afraid. She had learned to survive, to adapt, to fight back. She was Aurora, the guardian of the artifact, and she would not let it fall into the wrong hands. She continued her studies, her training, her relentless pursuit of knowledge. She became more skilled, more resourceful, more confident. She learned to trust her instincts, to listen to her inner voice. She became a master of disguise, a skilled manipulator, a silent warrior. And though the loneliness still gnawed at her, the memory of Elias and the importance of her mission kept her going. She knew that she was carrying a heavy burden, a secret that could change the course of the war. But she was ready to bear that burden, to face any challenge, to make any sacrifice. She was no longer the grieving girl who had left Willow Creek. She was a woman transformed, a woman forged in the fires of adversity, a woman with a purpose. She was Aurora, the guardian of the artifact, and she would not be defeated. The war and her own personal battle was far from over, but she was ready. She had found her strength, her resilience, and her unwavering determination to protect the legacy of love and sacrifice that Elias had entrusted to her. The attic dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight piercing through the gloom, just as they always did. But today the air felt different. Lighter, perhaps. Or maybe it was just the weight lifting from my own heart, as I turned the brittle pages of Grandma Aurora's diary. The war was over. The words swam before my eyes, a testament to a life lived in the shadows, a life I never knew existed until now. Aurora's entries from those final months of the war were a whirlwind of coded messages, frantic meetings, and sleepless nights. She wrote of using the locket, Elias's locket, to transmit information that crippled enemy supply lines, diverted troops from crucial battles, and even, chillingly, exposed double agents working within the Allied ranks. The locket, powered by some unknown energy, became her lifeline and her weapon. One entry, dated just weeks before the armistice, described a particularly daring operation. A German U-boat convoy was preparing to launch a surprise attack on a fleet of Allied ships. Aurora, working with a small team of resistance fighters, managed to pinpoint the convoy's location and transmit the coordinates directly to Allied command. The attack was thwarted, saving countless lives. Reading her account, I could almost feel the tremor of her hand as she penned the words, the immense pressure weighing on her young shoulders. She wasn't a soldier on the front lines, but her actions held just as much weight, perhaps even more. She wrote of the constant fear, the gnawing anxiety that she would be discovered, that the locket would fail, that she would betray the trust placed in her. But beneath the fear there was a steely resolve, a fierce determination to do her part, to honor Elias's memory, to ensure that his sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. The locket, she wrote, was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a tangible connection to him, a reminder of the love they shared, and a source of strength in her darkest hours. And then it came. The entry dated May 8, 1945. The single word, scrawled in larger, bolder letters than anything else in the diary. Peace. The entry that followed was less a detailed account, and more a raw outpouring of emotion. Relief washed over her, she wrote, a tidal wave that threatened to drown her. But beneath the relief was an exhaustion that went bone deep, a weariness that settled into her soul. The constant vigilance, the constant fear, the constant pressure had taken their toll. She had given everything she had, and now she was spent. She described the celebrations in the streets of Willow Creek, the jubilant crowds waving flags and singing songs. But for Aurora, the celebrations felt distant, surreal. She watched from her window, a ghost in her own life, still clinging to the shadows even as the world around her emerged into the light. The war was over, but the scars remained. The scars on her heart, the scars on her soul. The loss of Elias, the years of secrecy and fear, had changed her irrevocably. She knew she could never go back to the person she was before the war, before Elias. But she also knew that she couldn't stay trapped in the past. She had to find a way to move forward, to rebuild her life, to find a new purpose. And she did. The diary entries became less frequent after that, less focused on coded messages and clandestine operations, and more focused on the everyday details of life. Aurora wrote of returning to Willow Creek, to the familiar comfort of her family's old farmhouse. She wrote of tending her garden, of baking bread, of spending time with her nieces and nephews. Simple pleasures, perhaps, but pleasures that had been denied to her for so long. She also wrote of her work with war refugees, helping them to rebuild their lives after the devastation they had endured. She volunteered at the local hospital, tending to the wounded and comforting the grieving. She taught English to newly arrived immigrants, helping them to integrate into their new community. Aurora poured her heart and soul into helping others. She understood the pain of loss, the trauma of war, the struggle to rebuild. And she used her experiences to connect with those who were suffering, to offer them comfort, to give them hope. It was during this time that she began to blossom into the woman I knew as Grandma Aurora. The woman with the kind eyes and the gentle smile. The woman who always had a warm hug and a listening ear. The woman who radiated a sense of peace and serenity that seemed to fill the room. She never spoke of her wartime experiences. Not to me, not to anyone. The diary was her only confidant, the only place where she allowed herself to revisit the past. But I see it now, in the lines etched around her eyes, in the quiet strength that underlay her gentle demeanor. I see the echoes of the brave young woman who risked everything for her country, for her love. The locket, Elias's locket, became a treasured possession. She never wore it again, but she kept it safe, tucked away inside an old music box. The music box sat on her dresser, and I remember as a child, I would often ask her to play it. The tinkling melody, a simple, almost mournful tune, always filled me with a sense of peace and contentment. I never knew the story behind the locket, never understood the significance of the music box. But now, as I hold the diary in my hands, I understand. The locket wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of her love for Elias, a reminder of her sacrifice, and a testament to her courage. The music box wasn't just a container. It was a sanctuary, a place where she could keep her memories safe, where she could revisit the past without being consumed by it. Grandma Aurora never explicitly told me about her role in the war. She didn't need to. Her life, her actions, her very being spoke volumes. She taught me the importance of kindness, the power of compassion, the value of forgiveness. She taught me that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. She taught me that love can conquer all. She lived a long and full life, surrounded by family and friends. She never remarried, but she never seemed lonely. She found fulfillment in helping others, in making the world a better place. She lived a life of quiet dignity, a life of unwavering faith, a life of profound love. And now, as I close the diary, I understand why I wasn't mentioned in the will. The material possessions, the money, the land, those things didn't matter to her. What mattered was the legacy she left behind, the value she instilled in me, the love she shared with the world. The diary itself she left to me, not as a burden but as a gift of understanding, a gift of connection, a gift of love. It's a reminder that even the most ordinary seeming lives can hold extraordinary stories, that even the quietest souls can possess immense strength. The sun catches the locket nestled inside the music box as I close the diary. The melody, faint but clear, fills the attic. It's a song of love, a song of loss, a song of hope. It's the song of Grandma Aurora's life, a life lived in the shadows, a life that ultimately illuminated the world. And now it's my story too. A story I will carry with me always. The will was read, the lawyers droned on, and the house, once echoing with Aurora's laughter and the scent of her baking, felt hollow, a shell stripped of its spirit. My name wasn't mentioned. Not a word about me. It stung, a sharp, unexpected pain that settled into a dull ache. I understood logically that she had her reasons, that life was complicated and Will's were even more so. But the little girl inside me, the one who sat at her feet listening to fantastical tales, felt abandoned. Then I found it. The diary, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the attic, tucked away like a precious secret. It wasn't about money or possessions. It was about something far more valuable. A life lived, a heart poured onto paper. And as I held it in my hands, the weight of its pages pressing against my palm, I knew everything was about to change. I started reading that night, the attic dust clinging to my clothes, the faint scent of lavender and old paper filling my senses. Aurora's handwriting, elegant and flowing, told a story I never knew. A story of hardship, of sacrifice, of unwavering love in the face of adversity. It wasn't the fairy tale princess I had imagined. She was a warrior, a survivor, a woman who had carried burdens I couldn't even begin to comprehend. The entries spanned decades, from her youth in a war-torn country to her quiet life in our small town. She wrote of loss, of leaving her family behind, of the constant ache of missing them. But she also wrote of hope, of finding joy in small moments, of the unwavering belief in a better future. She wrote of me too, of the light I brought into her life, of the stories she told me not just for my entertainment, but to impart wisdom, to arm me with courage for the battles I would inevitably face. As I read, the stories she used to tell me began to resurface in my memory, but with a new profound understanding. The tale of the little bird who flew across the ocean, carrying a single grain of sand at a time to build a new home, wasn't just a cute bedtime story. It was about perseverance, about the power of small acts of kindness, about the enduring strength of hope. The story of the lonely princess locked in a tower, who learned to weave tapestries filled with her dreams, wasn't just about escaping reality. It was about finding creativity and beauty, even in the most confining circumstances, about the power of imagination to transform hardship. And the story of the old woman who lived in a shoe, surrounded by children, always finding enough love and food to share, wasn't just a funny rhyme. It was about the boundless capacity of the human heart, about the importance of community, about the enduring strength of a mother's love, even when resources are scarce. I realized then that these weren't just stories. They were parables, lessons woven into narratives, seeds of wisdom planted in my young mind. Aurora wasn't just telling me stories. She was teaching me how to live. She was preparing me for a world she knew could be cruel and unforgiving, but also filled with beauty and wonder. She was gifting me with the tools I needed to navigate the complexities of life, to find strength in adversity, to hold on to hope even in the darkest of times. I spent days lost in her words, the diary becoming my constant companion. I learned about her dreams, her fears, her regrets, and her triumphs. I learned about the choices she made, the sacrifices she endured, the love she poured into the world. And as I learned, my resentment began to fade, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. The will, the house, the possessions, they suddenly seemed insignificant. Aurora's true legacy wasn't material. It was the love she had given, the wisdom she had shared, the strength she had embodied. It was the way she had touched my life, shaping me into the person I am today. One entry, written shortly before her death, brought me to my knees. She wrote about watching me grow, about the pride she felt in my accomplishments, about the hope she had for my future. She wrote about knowing that she wouldn't be around forever, but that her love would always be with me, guiding me, protecting me. And then she wrote, "Don't look for me in the things I leave behind. Look for me in the stories I told you, in the lessons I taught you, in the love that lives within your heart. That is where you will find me, always." I closed the diary, tears streaming down my face. The attic seemed to fade away, replaced by the memory of Aurora's warm embrace, her gentle voice, her twinkling eyes. I felt her presence all around me, a comforting warmth that settled deep within my soul. I understood then. The diary wasn't just a collection of words on paper. It was a map to her heart, a window into her soul. It was a testament to the enduring power of love, the unwavering strength of the human spirit, and the enduring bond between generations. I thought of my own life, of the challenges I had faced, of the doubts I had harbored. I realized that Aurora's story wasn't just about her past. It was about my present and my future. It was a reminder that I too possessed the strength to overcome adversity, to find joy in small moments, to make a difference in the world. The diary became my guide, my confidant, my source of inspiration. I reread it often, each time discovering new layers of meaning, new insights into Aurora's life and my own. I started to see the world through her eyes, to appreciate the beauty that surrounded me, to embrace the challenges that came my way. I also started to share her stories with others, passing on her wisdom, keeping her memory alive. I told them to my friends, to my family, to anyone who would listen. And as I spoke, I felt her presence with me, her voice echoing in my own. I learned that the true treasures in life aren't material possessions, but the love we share, the memories we create, and the stories we tell. Aurora may not have left me a fortune, but she left me something far more valuable. A legacy of love, courage, and wisdom that would endure for generations to come. The house still feels empty sometimes, but now it's an emptiness filled with memories, with love, with the echo of Aurora's laughter. I walk through the rooms, touching the furniture, breathing in the scent of lavender and old paper, and I know that she is still with me, always. And I understand now that being left out of the will wasn't a rejection, but a gift. It forced me to look beyond the material, to seek out the true treasure, to discover the hidden diary that held the key to understanding Aurora's life and my own. It forced me to confront my own assumptions, to challenge my own beliefs, to grow into the person I was meant to be. Aurora's story taught me that everyone has a story to tell, a hidden diary waiting to be discovered, and that by uncovering these stories, by honoring them, by sharing them with others, we can create a more compassionate, understanding, and connected world. The sun streams through the attic window now, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I close Aurora's diary, a sense of peace settling over me. The ache in my heart has faded, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and love. I am not just Aurora's granddaughter, I am her legacy, and I will carry her story with me always. Perhaps the greatest inheritance we can receive isn't gold or land, but the stories of those who came before us. The struggles they overcame, the loves they cherished, the lessons they learned. These are the threads that weave together the fabric of our lives, connecting us to the past and guiding us toward the future. And it is our responsibility to keep these stories alive, to share them with others, to ensure that the wisdom of our ancestors continues to illuminate the world. Aurora's Diary is more than just a book. It is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, love and hope can prevail. It is a gift that I will cherish forever, a guide that will continue to inspire me, and a legacy that I will proudly carry on. The stories we tell, the memories we hold, these are the things that truly matter. These are the things that endure. And these are the things that make us who we are. Here it is, my dears, the end of Aurora's tale, or perhaps more accurately, the beginning of its life in your hearts. If you've listened this far, you've walked alongside a woman who knew sorrow intimately, yet chose time and again to embrace the light. You've seen the shadows that danced around her, the choices she made in the face of unimaginable hardship, and the quiet, unwavering love that pulsed beneath her skin, a love that ultimately shaped not only her destiny, but also the future of those she cherished. Aurora, you see, was a woman sculpted by the harsh winds of life, a woman who understood the fragility of happiness and the enduring strength of the human spirit. She lived through times that demanded resilience, times that tested the very limits of her being. The Secret Diary, that small, unassuming book, was more than just a repository of memories. It was a testament to her courage, a chronicle of her unwavering belief in the power of love and forgiveness. It was a window into a soul that refused to be extinguished, even when darkness threatened to consume it. Think of the sacrifices she made, the silent battles she fought, the burden she carried with such grace and quiet dignity. She gave up dreams, she swallowed bitter pills of disappointment, she faced betrayals that would have broken a lesser person. But through it all, she held on to her humanity, her capacity for compassion, her unwavering hope for a better tomorrow. She understood that even in the darkest of nights, a single spark of kindness could ignite a flame of hope. And that, my darlings, is the essence of her story. It is not a tale of grand adventures or miraculous feats, but rather a quiet, intimate portrait of a woman who lived a life of extraordinary ordinariness. She was a mother, a wife, a friend, a daughter, roles we all understand, roles that resonate with the very core of our being. But within those seemingly simple roles, she found the strength to overcome adversity, the wisdom to forgive, and the love to nurture and protect those around her. Aurora's legacy is not written in stone monuments or celebrated with grand parades. It lives on in the small acts of kindness, in the whispered words of encouragement, in the quiet moments of understanding that she shared with those she loved. It lives on in the memories that have been passed down through generations, memories that have shaped the very fabric of our family. And now it lives on in you, in the empathy and understanding that you have shown by listening to her story. If Aurora's story touched your heart, if it resonated with your own experiences, if it sparked a flicker of recognition within your soul, then it has served its purpose. Stories like hers are not meant to be simply heard and forgotten. They are meant to be carried forward, shared with others, and allowed to shape our own lives. They are meant to remind us of the power of resilience, the importance of love, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Think of the secrets she guarded, the emotions she suppressed, the dreams she dared to hold on to in the face of overwhelming odds. She was a keeper of stories, a guardian of memories, a silent witness to the joys and sorrows of her time. And now her secrets are yours, her memories are yours, her story is yours to carry forward. I've often wondered what drove her to keep that diary, to pour her heart out onto those pages, knowing that they might never be read. Perhaps it was a need to unburden herself, to find solace in the act of writing, to leave behind a record of her life for future generations. Perhaps it was simply a way to make sense of the world around her, to find meaning in the chaos and uncertainty of life. Whatever her reasons, I am grateful that she did. Because through her words we have been given a glimpse into the heart and soul of a truly remarkable woman. And now, my dears, it's time to pass the torch. It's time to take Aurora's story and share it with the world. It's time to let her legacy live on, not just in our memories, but in the hearts and minds of others. It's time to remember the lessons she taught us, the values she embodied, and the love she so freely gave. If you found yourself moved by Aurora's story, If you felt a connection to her struggles and her triumphs, then please, let us know. A small gesture, a click of a button, can amplify her voice and allow her story to reach even more people. Please leave a like if Aurora's story touched your heart. Let us know that you were listening, that you were moved, that you were inspired. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories of courage, resilience, and love, then please subscribe to our channel. We have many more tales to tell, stories that have been passed down through generations, stories that are waiting to be shared with the world. By subscribing, you will be helping us to keep these stories alive, to ensure that they are never forgotten. But more than that, we want to hear your thoughts. We want to know what resonated with you, what touched your heart, what lessons you learned from Aurora's story. Please, share your thoughts below in the comments section. Tell us what you think, what you feel, what you remember. Let's create a space where we can come together and celebrate the lives of ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives. Let's create a community of storytellers and story listeners, a community that values empathy, understanding, and connection. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? Was it the love she shared with her husband? The sacrifices she made for her children? The dreams she dared to hold on to in the face of adversity? Or was it something else entirely? Something that remained hidden beneath the surface, something that only she knew? Think about it, my dears. Ponder the mysteries of her life, the secrets she guarded, the emotions she suppressed. And then share your thoughts with us. Let's unravel the enigma of Aurora together. Let's delve into the depths of her soul. Let's discover the truth about this remarkable woman. Remember, my darlings, stories have the power to change the world. They can inspire us to be better, to do better, to love better. They can connect us to one another, remind us of our shared humanity, and give us hope for a brighter future. And Aurora's story is no exception. It is a story that deserves to be heard, a story that deserves to be shared, a story that deserves to live on in the hearts and minds of generations to come. So let us carry her legacy forward. Let us honor her memory by living lives of courage, compassion, and love. Let us never forget the lessons she taught us, the values she embodied, and the unwavering belief she held in the power of the human spirit. And as you go about your day, remember Aurora. Remember her strength, her resilience, her unwavering love. And remember that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. There is always light. There is always the possibility of a better tomorrow. Thank you, my dears, for listening. Thank you for sharing your time and your hearts with us. And thank you for helping us to keep Aurora's story alive. Until next time, may your lives be filled with love, laughter, and the joy of storytelling. And may you never forget the power of a good story to heal, to inspire, and to connect us all. Goodbye, my darlings. And may Aurora's spirit guide you always. Now go forth and tell your own stories, for within each of you lies a tale waiting to be told. Don't let it remain hidden. Let it shine. Let it inspire. Let it connect. Just as Aurora's did.